I'm no longer invisible. The Mateo case and how one student exposed an entire system. I always figured Mateo was just a quiet kid, the kind of classmate who slips like a shadow between desks and hallways. He didn't make noise, he didn't ask for anything, and he seemed to live on an island no one else was allowed to reach. He was short for his age, shouldering a backpack that looked bigger than him, and he wore a look that never searched for anyone. If someone asked me about him, I'd say the obvious, reserved, distant, the guy who ate alone at the last bench in the yard. With time, I understood his silence wasn't shyness. It was armor, hammered into shape by blows. Recess always found him in the same spot, the coldest corner of the yard, staring at a nothing that sometimes looked like it was staring back. Nobody sat next to him, not even the kids who performed compassion out of habit. He'd unwrap his sandwich like it was a ritual and chew without hurry, with a calm that at moments felt like provocation. The taunts drifted past him, flies searching for an open wound. And although he never reacted, you could spot the invisible tremor in his fingers or the blink that betrayed a stab of pain. The kids who bullied him fed off that muteness. Every joke added laughter, and every laugh pushed the border of cruelty an inch further. One day, after class, Mateo walked straight into the street and planted himself in front of a car that was coming. He didn't raise his arms or shout. He just stood there like his body was a stop sign. The screech of brakes cut the air. The sound of rubber on asphalt sliced through all of us. The driver went pale, breathing in ragged bursts. The car stopped inches from his knees. The man jumped out, asking if he was okay, if he needed help, if he should call someone. Mateo dropped his head, stepped back twice, and walked away slowly like nothing had happened. He went back to being that shadow along the edges, the kid no team picked in P. When captains called names, his never left anybody's mouth, and when he was the last one left, the laughter was louder than the coach's whistle. The locker room was worse: stale air, cheap soap, and malice. The words they threw at him were stones wrapped in spit. Faggot, fairy, pervert. Their mouths were fists. It wasn't just insults. It was a daily test to see how deep they could drive the thorn before he screamed. But Mateo didn't scream. That was his offense to them, not giving them the show. Then the rumors spread like oil on tile. Mateo was gay, and that alone stamped a target on him. The label became the perfect excuse to normalize humiliation. From then on, they'd throw fruit at his back so he wouldn't know who did it. Once they hit him so hard on the head that he ended up on the floor, eyes wet and dignity gasping for air. He tried to stand. They knocked his books down and finished him off with laughter. He gathered his things slowly, the way you collect shards of a broken glass. Then he ran. I don't know how he had the breath for it, but he did. They say he walked more than 15 kilometers that day, following the highway with no map and no destination, feeling that if the road swallowed him, nobody would care. That was Mateo's first disappearance. The kid inside him left with those steps. The one who came back was someone else, skin tanned by a sun that doesn't warm. When he returned after skipping school for a week, nobody asked questions. No teacher marked him absent. No office sent a letter. And among classmates, the empty seat at the back was just part of the scenery. Monday, he showed up with slightly longer hair, shoulders curved inward, and eyes that had changed languages. He walked in without greeting, without looking at anyone, without asking permission. He sat by the window like always. From my desk, I pretended to fish out my earbuds like plastic could cushion the inevitable. I knew what was coming. The silence before the storm is a sound your body learns to recognize. Jorge broke it first. "So, the little psycho's back," he said, that laugh crawling up your neck like an insect. Diego, his inseparable shadow, chimed in. "Yeah, look at him, skinnier, more messed up, and still a faggot." The laughter slid in like knives down my spine. I clenched my jaw and stayed still. Stillness has weight too, and that day I felt it settle on my chest like a block. The day went on with the same crooked normal. Mateo ate alone, spoke to nobody, looked at nobody. Until last period, when our Spanish teacher announced pairs for a research project, chosen at random. Fate, or the universe's dumb joke, matched me with him. A low ripple of comments followed. "Dude, you got the corpse," someone snickered. "Careful, The weird rubs off, another added. Mateo didn't even blink. He met my eyes for a second, long enough to make my shame yank my gaze to my hands. We stayed after school in the library. The worksheet from the teacher listed suggested topics. I tried to break the ice with clumsy courtesy. What topic sounds good to you? We can pick from the list, I offered. He cut in, voice low but steady, migration. I nodded and we started. Between shelves and highlighted pages, I found someone I'd never bothered to see. Mateo cited authors like he'd invited them to the table. He linked ideas with surgical precision. He carried the whole map in his head. Every comment was brief and blunt, like ringing a temple bell once and letting the metal do the rest. I wondered why nobody else heard him. Maybe because listening requires shutting up, and almost no one in our school knew how to do that. Remember, if you enjoy my videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. At one point, when he bent to grab a notebook, his sweatshirt lifted and I saw a thick scar along his side. A clumsy line, badly stitched, like a thread yanked through flesh. I glanced, and he noticed without looking up. "What are you staring at?" he asked. "Nothing. Sorry," I said, heat crawling up my face. He didn't answer. He went back to ink, to tidy handwriting, to that discipline that seemed to be holding him by a thread. We wrapped our outline when the sun was already giving up. The hallway lights washed everything in slow orange, making us walk quieter. Right before the exit, a voice shattered the silence. "Hey, faggot." Jorge came with Diego and a third kid I didn't know. Their smiles smelled like trouble. They planted themselves in front of us like they owned a world they hadn't earned. "So, got yourself a boyfriend yet?" Diego said, blocking Mateo's path. He didn't answer. Jorge tipped his chin at me. "What about you?" Into weirdos now. I don't know where the nerve came from, but slipped out of me. Leave him alone. Enough. Jorge stepped forward, ready to mark territory. Then a door at the end of the hall opened. The principal. The three of them scattered like roaches under a light. Mateo left without a word. I stood there, hands shaking, asking myself how long I planned to watch from the shore. Next day, Mateo didn't show. The day after, either. His empty seat weighed more than a shout. Nobody asked a thing. I got sick of the indifference and went to find our Spanish teacher. I knocked, walked in with my heart out of order, and dropped my worry on his desk. "Do you know why Mateo hasn't come?" He slid his glasses down, scanned me with the tired eyes of someone who's seen too much already, and said he didn't know. "Did something happen?" he asked. I hesitated between yes, no, and something. I mumbled that we were partners on the project, and I was worried. He sighed and pulled a folder. "Mateo's brilliant and sealed up," he said. "He's had some trouble at home." He stopped mid-sentence, like he'd already said more than he should. "Are you his friend?" he asked. Silence ratted me out. I wanted to lie. I couldn't. "No," I said, spitting in my own reflection. "No, but I don't want something to happen to him," I added, trying to rescue what was left of my pride. I left with a knot that wouldn't loosen. That afternoon, I looked for Camila, a junior I believed was Mateo's cousin. We'd never spoken. I waited for her outside and approached with a timid version of myself I didn't know existed. "You're Camila, right?" "Yeah, who are you?" I told her about the project and my concern. Her face changed in a second. Her eyes fogged like a window on a humid day. "Monday at dawn, Mateo left home," she said. "He left a note. I can't take it anymore." The ground disappeared under me. "The police?" I asked. "They called, but there's history. Last time they found him walking the highway toward Querétaro," she explained. "This time there's no trace. My aunt is shattered." We stood there staring at the empty yard, listening to the echo of other people's footsteps. I wanted to puke or run toward some place where a sentence could fix the world. It didn't happen. Back in my room that night, I opened Facebook and typed his name. I found a profile without a photo, a blurry landscape as the banner. 2 posts, a poem that read like a lament, and a sentence pinned like a needle. People don't realize that one day you're walking and you just don't want to come back. It was from Sunday, hours before he stopped showing up. My chest punched itself. Something was very wrong. Thursday, I pressed further. I told Camila what I'd found. We met with her uncle, an IT tech, who agreed to look at a voice message I'd received from an unknown number. It was short, ragged breathing, and a broken voice. I shouldn't have mentioned you. Now I can't come back. It was Mateo. Her uncle hooked up my phone, typed with a craftsman's patience, and cross-checked data and maps like a watchmaker. The number was a prepaid line activated 2 days earlier, apparently pinging from near San Felipe del Agua, in Oaxaca. Rural terrain, hills, weak signal. A perfect place to hide from almost everyone. Camila looked at me and asked if I'd go. I said yes before thinking about it. Alone? No. Will you come with me? She hesitated, then nodded. He matters to me too. Saturday, we caught a bus. We lied at home, told them we were going to a workshop for school. The ride was quiet, full of questions with no addressee. When we arrived, we rented a cheap room in a small inn where the owner asked only what he needed to. We sketched a makeshift plan. Follow the last map ping. Ask little. Watch everything. Don't act on first impulses. Sunday morning, a taxi dropped us at a dirt road. From here, it's just brush, the driver said. We hiked along small paths, cross a stream, shooed away skinny dogs and wandering chickens. After half an hour, a wooden cabin appeared, half hidden. I knocked with damp knuckles. Silence. I knocked again. A noise inside. Footsteps. The door cracked open and a shadow took shape. Mateo, paler, with deep circles under his eyes and the beginnings of a beard. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice dry. I told him about the audio. "You shouldn't have come." "It isn't safe," he said without moving. "Why?" Camila asked. Mateo weighed our faces and stepped aside to let us in. The cabin was a showcase of scarcity. A mattress on the floor, a torn backpack, an empty pill bottle, a flashlight, and notebooks. So many notebooks, as if ink were the only thing that still obeyed him. "Everything changed," Mateo said, when the locker room video leaked. The uncut chain of humiliations that no one had the guts to delete. They posted it from a fake account with his name, his address, his school. An easy bullseye. Threats started hitting his mother's phone. One day a man knocked on their door. Not a coworker, but one of those guys who hide hate behind the costume of morality. "We're here to clean up the streets," they said. That's when he realized the problem wasn't just Jorge or Diego or the school hallways anymore. The monster had grown, and it had adult hands. That's why he left. He didn't want his mother paying the price for a war he never asked for. He rubbed his face like he was trying to unspool a memory. I asked why he sent the audio to me. "Because you didn't laugh," he said. "Because you saw me. You didn't know what to do, but you saw me." Then he opened a notebook full of clippings, screenshots, names, dates. It was a living file, a map of hell assembled with patience. "I'm collecting everything," he said. "If I have to burn, they're burning with me." I warned him about the risk, what people do when they feel exposed. "I don't care anymore," he answered. "No one protected me. No one spoke. So I'll speak. If something happens to me, you too will tell the story." We barely slept that night. We sifted through chats where he asked for help and got ghosted, emails to admin with empty replies, reports stamped received, sleeping in forgotten folders, photos of scars that argued better than any speech. It was an autopsy performed on someone alive. Before dawn, we followed him outside. He stood on a hill, looking at the horizon with the stillness of someone about to decide something irreversible. "Did you ever think about dying?" I asked. "Yes," he said without turning. "But now I want them to see me before I disappear." We walked back with that sentence chewing at our heels. The door was ajar. Inside, chaos. Notebooks scattered, the table flipped, the mattress moved. On the wall, sprayed in red, one word, "Shut up." For a second, I thought it was blood. Fear mixed with something new on Mateo's face. Fury. "This happened while we were walking," I said. "Someone was watching us." He clenched his fists. He wasn't leaving. Not this time. We spent the night awake, bracing the door with a metal bar. Camila begged him to find another place. Mateo refused. "I'm not who I was," he said under the shaky light of a candle. The kid who covered his face on the court died the day I stood in front of that car. He didn't stop for me. He stopped by chance. Now I decide what I become. Before we left, he handed us a USB drive, a backup. If I disappear, upload everything. Back in the city, I hid that drive like a radioactive fossil. The school pretended things were normal, but rumor was a tide that kept rising. The video of Mateo on the train tracks resurfaced and went viral. Hundreds of comments, most of them cruel or fake compassionate, a few human. Someone wrote, "I studied with him. The teachers knew." That was the first fiber of a rope that began to tighten throats. 2 days later, the school emailed a sloppily written PDF, deeply regretting the situation and rejecting violence. Words as a shield, not responsibility. Camila and I opened the USB in secret. Inside was dynamite, audio of teachers blaming the victim, unanswered emails, complaints stamped and shelved, photos of scars speaking louder than any argument. "If this gets out," I said, "they sink. And if we sink with them?" Camila asked. No one would believe us at first. The same people who had stayed quiet would call us liars. They'd twist the story. But there was no going back. Someone had to smash the glass. That night, I got a text with a photo of me leaving my house. "Think you're a hero? Watch your mouth." It was proof we were being watched. Fear moved in under my bed. The next day was pure paranoia. Shadows that felt like stairs, footsteps that sounded like tailing. At lunch, Jorge walked up grinning like a knife. "Still looking for the dead boy," he whispered. "Careful what you dig up." Who told them? How did they know? I got home, dropped the blinds, took out the USB, and felt how light it weighed and how heavy it was. I called Camila and told her what I decided. I uploaded everything before dawn. Not to one place, to many. Forums, anonymous channels, whistleblower blogs, public clouds, corners of the internet that don't show up on page one. I zipped a file called "This is what you kept quiet" and ended the post with one line. "My name isn't Mateo, but this is for him." It took hours, hiding my trail as best I could, more determination than skill. When I finally killed the screen, my fingers were shaking. By midday, the internet blew up. Student groups swarmed with screenshots. Parents didn't understand. Teachers scrambled. Reporters sniffed a carcass. The audio of the teacher saying that kid is asking for it burned through feeds. The unanswered emails, same thing. Mateo's letter with the underlined phrase, "I want them to see me before I disappear," became a banner. The school tried to block out the sun with more statements. Too late. On day 3, I got a call from Oaxaca, Mateo's mother. She thanked me, voice splintered, for not letting him vanish. They still hadn't found him, she said, but that morning someone left an envelope at her door in his handwriting. "They've seen me." It didn't sound like goodbye. It sounded like a verdict. We hung up. The sentence wedged itself in me like a thorn. Camila came over and sat on my floor. We knew we'd lit a fuse no one could control. Admin started to wobble. Jorge was suspended. Diego was called in with his parents. They tried to sell them as isolated cases. Nobody bought it. For the first time, I saw Jorge walking with his head down. But on the other side, the threats kept coming. A call with a distorted voice. Sometimes heroes end up martyrs. Got it. I hung up with sweaty hands. Camila heard it. There was no walking this back. Students organized a silent sit-in, holding signs that asked, "Where is Mateo?" Nearly 100 sat in the courtyard, an image that hurt and healed at the same time. Teachers watched from windows. The principal talked on the phone, her face like a collapsing card house. Parents arrived, confused, angry. Something had finally switched sides. Shame. That afternoon, an anonymous video dropped. "If you want the truth, watch to the end." Camila sent it to me the second it appeared. A fixed shot of a poor room. Mateo at a small table, hollowed eyes, a voice both gentle and sharp. "I don't want this to be another sad story," he said. "I'm not the weirdo or the victim. I'm someone who endured so long I stopped being afraid. I'm not after likes or fame. I want to make sure nobody walks the same tunnel I did." He talked about jokes that were torture, about words like fistfuls of dirt thrown on a living body every day. He said he was done being numb, that now he was shouting, and if you felt invisible too, you could borrow his voice to make noise. The video ended with a sheet of paper taped to a stone wall. "If I disappear, let be with dignity, not fear." In 24 hours, it crossed millions of screens. Activists, media, celebrities, everyone repeated his name. The case broke out of the school. Pressure reached air-conditioned offices. Investigations opened against the school and against several staffers. The system, used to long naps, had to sit up. Meanwhile, Camila and I got another USB slid under her door. Inside was a single text file: "Don't look for me anymore. I see everything. The most important part is still missing. Get ready." It sounded like thunder on a clear sky. The week moved like a bomb with a countdown. Inspectors arrived in dark suits and low voices, asking what they'd never care to ask. The hallways smelled like guilt and fear, a metallic taste. The anonymous channel posted a zip title: "Nobody is innocent." Internal memos, emails, hot potato NG blame, recordings of students admitting they knew and stayed quiet. My voice was in there too. I heard myself say, "Yeah, they mess with them a lot, but I don't get involved. If you speak up, they'll come for you." Camila didn't judge me, but I hated myself hard. Mateo was holding up a mirror, and nobody walks away unscathed from that kind of stare. Hashtag, "Where is Mateo?" trended. The hate trenches fired back. It's fake. It's an agenda. It's exaggerated. The same rotten speeches, now cornered by evidence. On Wednesday, the principal was officially removed. We watched her slip out the back door through a gauntlet of shouts and cameras. A mother threw a folder in her face. Another yelled, "Cover up." Jorge and Diego were expelled without a clear memo. The school was falling apart, and still the question floated: where is Mateo? His absence had become a character of its own, one that forced everyone to move. Thursday, the air went tight the way it does before a storm. 10 minutes before last period, every phone buzzed at once. A new video. The end starts now. We ran to the bathroom, put in our earbuds, and watched our own classroom empty, a projector beaming onto the board. Black slides with white text. Truths nobody wanted to see. Then the avalanche. Clips rolled, audio and video. A teacher calling Mateo sick, a counselor recommending make a man out of him. Laughter in the main office as they flipped through bullying reports. Phrases like bombs. "That kid's a ticking time bomb. Better he explodes far from here." Camila cried in silence. I couldn't move. It was a live-streamed reckoning with no judge and no appeal. The last slide read, "This was my life and no one wanted to see it. Now you won't be able to look away." Mateo appeared briefly, thinner but unbroken. "If you made it this far, it's because you watched me fall or ignored me while I bled. I didn't hide because I'm a coward. I hid because the pain didn't fit inside me. Now everyone's going to carry their share." The screen went black and left one word: tomorrow. Friday dawned under a leaden sky. Outside the school, cameras, signs, parents arguing, cops scrolling their phones. At 9 on the dot, another video. "This is my real ending." Then the names. Jorge, expelled, lawsuits coming, a chat where he confessed he only prayed on the week because at home his dad called him a coward. Diego, the sidekick who filmed and distributed, exposed with screenshots. The principal, damning audio. The system, cracks everywhere. More came. The PE teacher, barred for life. The counselor, charged for malpractice. The chain of complicity, lit end to end. Camila stepped forward as a lighthouse. She built a student support collective, gave talks, took the case personally. Mateo left a message that tightened our throats. "Thank you for not being afraid of me," or of what it meant to stand next to me. Meanwhile, I had to face myself. I was the one who stayed quiet when I should have spoken, the one who watched and recorded silence. But I was also the one who walked the hills with Camila to find him, the one who uploaded the files when waiting wasn't an option. Mateo left me another line to live with. "I saw you. Your silence turned into shame and then into courage." No one teaches you how to carry that mix without shaking. The days after rose and fell with headlines, rumors, and threats. The school tried to rebuild an impossible order, but the damage was documented line by line. Parents formed committees. Lawyers arrived with binders. Reporters asked for interviews we didn't want to give. Everyone wanted a slice of the story, as if pain were a cake to be shared. The last post on Mateo's channel appeared 6 days after the big exposure. A photo of an empty desk, an open book, and a handwritten note. "I don't feel invisible anymore. Now it's you who have to face the mirror." It didn't say goodbye. It didn't say where. Once again, it was a mirror turned on us, and I realized that had always been the point, to make us look, to stop pretending we didn't know. Since then, every classroom carries a different hum. A teacher bites back a lazy joke. A kid sits next to the one who used to eat alone. A group decides to speak up when they see something. It isn't a grand victory. It's a slow fight against a habit. If you ask me about Mateo, I'll tell you the truth. I don't know where he is. But I hear him in every voice that finally refuses to stay quiet. And that, to him, was the point. I go back in my mind to the cabin sometimes. The flashlight on the table, the notebooks stacked like paper barricades, the words "shut up" tearing the wall. I don't know who sprayed it, but I know who it was for, everyone. It was the order we'd been given in countless voices, classmates, adults, institutions, and the one Mateo refused to obey. Ink was the way he snapped the padlock they clamped on his tongue. I keep thinking about his sentence. Let them see me before I disappear. He wasn't trying to be a hero or a martyr. He was stubbornly set on making the system look at itself without makeup. He pulled it off at a price we still don't know how to tally. Telling the truth always sends a bill. The pending question is who pays and how much. These are the kinds of accounts no one wants to settle, but they don't go away. At school, the echo didn't die with the statements. There were mandatory workshops, dusted-off protocols, complaint boxes that actually opened. What used to be paper turned into people. Camila took the collective to other schools. Some teachers joined without posing, others out of obligation. The usual suspects muttered overreaction. Then someone would play them an audio, and the muttering got stuck in their throat. I got used to checking the door before leaving, glancing in the rear view more often, ignoring block numbers. The fear didn't vanish. It learned to live alongside resolve. I keep thinking about that photo they sent of my house, the distorted voice, the footsteps behind me on some afternoons. And even so, if I could go back, I'd upload every file again. Some nights I dream about the tracks. No horn, no steel, just a straight line and a heavy silence. Sometimes Mateo's there with his back to me. Sometimes it's me. In all of them, the idea is the same. Keep walking until someone sees you. When I wake up, that line from his channel returns like a mantra. I don't feel invisible anymore. It's both a promise and a demand. For those of us still here, the job is to listen. The principal's lawyers tried to discredit the audio, said it was a crude fake. But the match of voices, dates, and emails left them with no floor to stand on. Jorge and Diego's families tried the teenage jokes angle, that there was no real intent to harm. Intent was on video. What you can see doesn't need a translator. And what you can hear sticks like cold glue. The community split. Some defended the institution like it was an immaculate mother. Others wanted it burned in a bonfire of permanent outrage. Between the extremes, a stubbornly practical group emerged. What do we do now? They set up work tables, reviewed protocols, proposed changes. When anyone drifted into speeches, Camila went back to her mantra. Less rhetoric, more mechanisms. I went to those first meetings with a strange weight in my chest. I kept hearing the line where I admitted my cowardice. There's no edit that erases that. I learned to sit and listen, to carry shame without using it as an excuse to run. Sometimes in the hall, a freshman would stop me to tell me something. The story usually started the same way. Me too. All those Me Too's build a warm bridge over a very cold river. In one session, a young teacher said she tried to support Mateo quietly, and they warned her off. Don't rock the boat, they told her, protect the image. She cried without spectacle. Someone thanked her. Someone else apologized for not backing her up. There's no enough nest to repair it all, but naming what was denied is a crack where light gets in. Over time, some media moved on. The news cycle is always hungry and impatient. But the Mateo case etched itself into the place like a tattoo. Paint and remodels won't cover it. And every time the old silence creeps back, there's a photo of an empty desk reminding us the cost of shutting up is always higher than comfort admits. There were days I waited for another signal from Mateo, a message, another USB, a breadcrumb. None came. His mother, though, sent Camila a short note thanking the collective. She said for the first time she felt like her son hadn't shouted into a well. We wrote back that we were still here. I didn't ask for more. Some pain you don't touch unless you're invited to. The police reported hazy progress. Interviews taken, angles explored, nothing conclusive. Searching without a map is exhausting. Sometimes I caught myself angry at him for going out of reach, for putting his life on a blade's edge. Then I'd look in the mirror and realize anger was just a mask, so I didn't have to call it fear. If I learned anything, it's that truth draws enemies in a lot of different uniforms. At home, my parents started noticing my precautions. I told them a careful version. I didn't lie, but I didn't say everything. My mom's voice shook, asking me not to get too involved. My dad stayed quiet for a long minute, then said, "Sometimes silence kills more than a bullet." That was his way of blessing what he didn't know how to name. Camila, tireless, turned her grief into fuel. I watched her speak in gyms and courtyards, accompany kids brave enough to report, fight for trained counselors and real response routes. I learned a lot watching her. Some people see earlier than you the world they need to build, and they start building without asking permission. If Mateo needed an heir, he already had one. I started documenting better. I kept copies, made timelines, wrote this story with a watchmaker's care. Not out of obsession, out of respect. If you're going to tell a life, even one in shadows, you have to be precise. In every line, I tried not to turn myself into the protagonist of what isn't mine. I'm a witness and a participant. I'm not the center. The center is the voice that forced us to stop staring at our shoes. The district announced official changes, an external committee to evaluate practices, a student ombud's office, mandatory training for staff. Some applauded, others called it lipstick. For the first time, though, a list of promises had a chance to become gears if someone kept watch. Camila built a tracking network to make sure the words didn't evaporate. At home, I printed the photo of the empty desk and taped it to the wall across from my workstation. Not an altar, a fire alarm. When I wake up with moral laziness, I look at it. I remember the cabin, the USB, the red spray paint, the distorted voice on the phone. Memory isn't punishment. It's a tool. Using it hurts, but not as much as letting rust eat the beams again. Some of the same kids who used to laugh started offering public apologies. I didn't know what to do with them. I'm glad they said it. It doesn't make me feel better. Forgiveness belongs to the person who carries the wounds, not to the one describing them. Every now and then a rumor pops up about Jorge with his head down, and I feel a mix I can't sort out. Compassion for the broken boy he was, anger at the teenager who chose to break others. Diego vanished from our feeds. I heard he was working at a shop, learning to fix the kind of things he used to break in people. I hope that's true. The principal retreated. People say she has panic attacks. I'm not happy she's suffering, but I'm relieved conscience exists. That denial isn't eternal. No one should have needed her fall to be safe, but that's how the gears sometimes grind in a crooked machine. I ran into the PE teacher at a store. He met my eyes for 2 seconds. He didn't say sorry or make excuses. He paid and left. Maybe that different kind of silence is the start of something else. Maybe not. I've learned not to demand perfect endings. Real life doesn't roll credits over a piano track. It keeps going with visible seams and work to do. People ask if I'd upload the files again, knowing everything that came after. The answer is yes. Not because I liked walking through threats and surveillance, but because the alternative was greasing a machine whose destination we already know. Sometimes the only way to break a cycle is to smash a gear with a hammer. The noise is ugly. The silence is worse. Another question, do I think Mateo's alive? The honest truth, I don't know. I've learned to live with uncertainty without letting it eat me. I hear him in his own line. I'm watching everything. I want to believe he's still out there somewhere safe, watching how the ripples of his stone spread. And if not, I want to believe his voice reached what it aimed for, to stop being invisible, even in absence. Not long ago, a freshman came to me after class. The locker room scared him, he said. The joke scraped him raw inside. He didn't know how to say at home. I didn't give him a speech. I went with him to file a report under the new protocol. He walked out with a signed form and an appointment with the committee's counselor. He whispered thanks. That thin line of a voice holds more of the world up than it looks like. Camila texted me late one rainy night. Today, a dad apologized to his kid for not believing him. I don't know who they were. I don't need to. Somewhere, a parallel story found a crack for light to enter. It isn't epic. It's real. And real, in the end, is the only thing that pays back time and fear. If this account does anything, let it be to make the reader's chair a little uncomfortable. Don't get it twisted. There's no neutrality in a classroom where someone is turned into kindling. Either you're part of the wall that shoves, or you're part of the hand that pulls. I've been both. I hope next time I choose better and faster. I spoke with our Spanish teacher again months later. He said he felt guilty for not seeing more and not pushing sooner. I told him I wasn't looking for guilt. I wanted change. We agreed to create a reading club we wouldn't call a reading club so nobody would run away. Stories about empathy, power, violence disguised as narratives. More students signed up than we expected. In one meeting, a kid asked what make a man out of him really meant. A young teacher explained how language can be a machine. Camila talked about how words arrange the world and sometimes choke it. Mateo was there without being there. It's strange to say, but we learned to hear what's missing too. Camila's collective helped other schools adopt the protocols. They shared templates, routes, useful numbers. Some administrators resisted, but the weather had changed. Where reports used to be shelved, they were now logged. Where pain used to be minimized, it was measured. No miracle, persistence. Persistence is the civilian form of faith. People sometimes ask if we're afraid of retaliation. Of course. But fear stopped being our excuse jacket. It's a coat for cold nights, not a daily shirt. Nobody promises absolute safety. We promise not to disappear from the conversation. If Mateo taught us anything, it's that the silence of many builds a giant with hands for everyone. One day, someone taped a sheet in the hallway with his line, "Let them see me before I disappear." It was signed M. Nobody took it down. A week later, there were two more. I don't know if he put them up or if it was someone who understood. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that every time I see them, I remember the cabin, the red spray, the metal bar across the door, and I choose noise again. I've tried to write this without turning it into spectacle. I don't want to use pain as a trampoline or polish my part like it's bigger than it was. I was a witness, a bridge, a student. From Mateo, I learned that dignity has an austere aesthetic. Few words, clear evidence, no begging. From Camila, I learned tenderness is a political tool. People ask if we won. I don't like the word. There's no final score. There are processes, changes, cracks that let the air in a little better. Winning would mean getting Mateo's time back intact. That's impossible. What we can do is narrow the damage for whoever comes next. If that's the game, it's the only one worth playing. Sometimes I picture the moment someone painted "shut up" in the cabin, the rushed wrist, the rattled can, the squeezed letters. I wonder if whoever did it knew they were autographing their own fear. Violence always leaves graffiti with ethical misspellings. Our job is to write over it without erasing it. So the palimpsest is there for the record. This isn't a gift-wrapped moral. It's a record. Records don't teach on their own. They need to be used. If anyone reads this far, maybe do something small. Sit beside the kid who eats alone. Ask without prying. Believe without demanding tears. Report without hesitating. Quiet revolutions don't make the news, but they keep roofs from caving in. And when the old habits creep back, because they do, keep a symbolic USB at hand. Evidence, memory, contacts. It's not about living on the defensive. It's about accepting that certain changes require watchfulness. Not everything is pretty, but it's honest. And honesty, I've learned, is a kind of beauty that doesn't wash off in the rain. The day I took down the empty desk photo to clean, I stared at the blank wall. I thought about leaving it that way, plain white. I lasted exactly 3 minutes. I put it back up. Some absences deserve paper altars. Not to worship, so you don't forget where the compass points when the storm scrambles you again. I've only gone back to the cabins area a couple times. Not out of fear, out of respect. That place is a cardinal point on my internal map. There I learned silence is a design choice. Someone builds it, funds it, benefits from it. The only way to take it apart is with sustained noise. Not empty shouting. Noise with evidence, names, dates. People ask if I'll be a journalist. I don't know. Telling is not the same as publishing. For now, my job is something else. Keeping a small lamp lit in a hallway more people walk now. Camila laughs when I get corny. Then she sends another link to a protocol they got approved. That's how it happens. Small wins turning the exception into routine. One day, our collective received an email with no subject and an attachment. A photo from a hillside, town silhouette in the distance, a rough wooden table in the foreground with a sheet of paper on it. You couldn't read it. The sender was untraceable. You think it's him? Camila asked. I didn't answer. Hope and caution make a lousy formula for conclusions. Maybe the story stays open forever. Some doors don't close. They stay ajar so air can move and the past can step out for a stretch now and then. If that's the deal, I'll take it. I prefer a memory with a draft to a certainty without breath. If I could go back to day one, when I thought Mateo was just a quiet kid, I'd shove myself onto the bench next to him. I'd tell myself, you don't need perfect words, you need presence. Maybe I could have spared him one silence, and spare myself a few sleepless nights for not acting sooner. I can't rewrite that past, but I can write the ones that come next. Sometimes in the hallways, I pass a smaller student hauling a giant backpack who gives me a tiny nod. I nod back and keep moving, and inside I tell him, I see you. It might sound like nothing. It isn't. Visibility isn't a spotlight. It's a lamp switched on when the afternoon turns. It's enough to keep someone from tripping on the edge of the table. When people ask if this story is a warning or a hope, I say both. It warns about what happens when we normalize cruelty and when power decides its comfort is worth more than a life. And it offers hope because it proves coordinated noise moves pieces, exposes, topples, reorganizes. It doesn't fix everything, but it clears the way for others to repair something. I want to close with the same stubbornness Mateo used to crack the wall. Let's look at each other. Let's stop pretending someone else's pain is an anecdote. If there's a word sprayed on a wall, let's write another over it with a steady hand. If I disappear, he said, let be with dignity. I'll add, if we show up, let it be with responsibility. I don't know if we'll ever find Mateo. What I do know is that as long as his name keeps dragging uncomfortable conversations and concrete changes to the table, he will be here, the only way that matters in some stories, as a voice that refuses to return to the shadows. And I, who took too long to speak, will make sure not to shut up when it's time to say his name. Remember, if you enjoy my videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.